Hello, everyone, and welcome back to James and Elena's English Chat, the podcast where we talk about real life while helping you level up your English skills naturally.
Hi, James, and hello to our lovely listeners. I hope you're all feeling cozy today. I've got my tea and I'm ready to chat. How are you doing, James?
Well, Elena, I'm trying to stay positive, but I've had a bit of a rough start. Look at my sleeve. Can you see that? It's a massive brown stain. I tried to make a fancy latte this morning, but I was rushing and spilled half of it on myself. I really feel like I've started the day off on the wrong foot.
Oh no, not the white shirt. You know, James, that's actually the perfect way to start today's episode. Our theme today is all about job interviews, specifically that gap between the perfect version of ourselves we try to show and the messy reality of being human.
Exactly. When you go to an interview, you try to dress to the tens, right? You want to look amazing.
Close, James. The idiom is actually dress to the nines. It means to dress very smartly or formally.
Right, the nines. Well, I was dressed to the nines, but now I'm dressed to the twos? Anyway, we're going to talk about those stiff suit moments today. But before we get into the stories, a quick reminder for our listeners. This is a B1 level episode. That means we'll speak clearly, but if you don't catch every single word, please don't worry. Just relax and let the English wash over you.
That's right. Here is our roadmap for the show. First, we're going to share some personal stories about times we tried to be professional and failed miserably. While we talk, I want you to listen for some common phrasal verbs and idioms about work and stress. And at the very end, we'll visit Elena's vocabulary corner to review the best phrases from our chat so you can use them in your next interview.
It's going to be a fun one. And hey, before we dive into the deep end, could we ask for a tiny favor? If you enjoy learning with us, please like and subscribe to the show. It's a small thing, but it really helps us keep making these free episodes for you. We love having you here.
We really do. So, James, back to this professional version of you. Have you ever actually had a coffee disaster during a real job interview?
Oh, Elena, you have no idea. I once had an interview where I was so nervous I couldn't even keep it together long enough to sit down. I tried to power through the nerves, but it didn't go quite as planned.
I think we've all been there. Let's talk about that feeling, the pressure of the perfect interview.
Oh, the pressure is real, Elena. It starts the moment you walk through the door, doesn't it? You go from being a normal person on the street to someone who has to be perfect in a split second.
It really does. There's a very specific atmosphere in an office lobby. It's what I call the waiting room vibe. Everything is so quiet, and you're suddenly very aware of every little noise you make. Why do you think it feels so heavy in there?
I think it's because we feel like the walls are watching us. Like when you try to take a sip of water and the plastic cup makes a huge crunch sound. It feels like a drum kit in a library. I always feel like I'm breaking a rule just by breathing.
Exactly. And for me, it's the ticking clock. You sit on one of those stiff plastic chairs and just listen. Tick, tick, tick. You try to look professional, maybe you look at your phone or a company brochure, but your mind is racing. You're trying to remember all your prepared answers while your heart is thumping.
I know that feeling all too well. It reminds me of my very first big interview when I was 18. I didn't have any money for a new suit, so my dad let me borrow his. The problem is, my dad is a much bigger man than I am. He's built like a professional wrestler, and I was a very skinny teenager.
Oh no, James. I can imagine where this is going. Was it a bit loose?
Loose, Elena? It was a disaster. The jacket was so wide I looked like I had wings, and the sleeves were so long they completely covered my hands. I had to roll up the cuffs just so I could shake the manager's hand without looking like a magician. I felt so small and out of place in that fancy waiting room.
That sounds so stressful, but honestly, it's so relatable. We all start out somewhere. We think we have to look perfect to get the job, but almost everyone has a story like that. How did you handle it once the interview started?
I was so worried the interviewer would see through me. I thought they'd think, this kid is just wearing his dad's clothes. He's not a professional. I really had to try to keep my cool and focus on my words instead of the fact that my trousers were sliding down. I basically had to fake it until I made it.
That's such a great phrase. Fake it until you make it. If you act confident, people often don't even notice the oversized suit or the coffee stain. They notice your energy and your willingness to learn. It's about the person inside the clothes, not the price of the jacket.
That's a good way to put it. I actually ended up getting that job. I think the manager realized I was trying my best. How about you listening at home? Have you ever had a suit moment where you felt totally out of place? Or maybe you wore something you regretted? We've all been there.
We really have. It's a universal human experience to feel like an imposter. That waiting room is just a room. It doesn't define your worth. It's just the first step of the journey.
It is so true, Alina. Even when we feel like we do not belong, sometimes that is when we find a real connection. I think we spend so much time trying to be a perfect version of ourselves that we forget people actually like the real us.
Exactly. I remember a specific interview for a tech company a few years ago. It was very pressure. Everyone in the office was wearing black suits and looking very serious. I felt like I was completely underqualified for the role. I honestly thought I would not stand out at all among the other candidates.
That is such a scary feeling. Did you just try to power through the interview and act like you knew everything?
I did. I was answering all these technical questions about software, but I felt like a robot. I was so stiff. Then the manager looked at the very bottom of my resume. He saw a tiny note about my hobby, urban gardening. I mentioned how I grow tomatoes on my small balcony, even though my cat Whiskers, he is a very grumpy orange tabby, always tries to eat the leaves.
Wait, you started talking about gardening in a tech interview? Did the manager think that was strange?
Not at all. It turns out the manager also loved gardening. We stopped talking about software for 10 minutes and started talking about how hard it is to keep plants alive in the city. He said my passion for gardening showed I was patient and detail-oriented. Suddenly, the mood changed. I was not just a name on a paper, I was a person. It really helped us connect.
That is amazing. It is funny how the imperfect parts of our lives, like fighting with garden slugs or having a naughty cat, can actually help us get the job. It makes you human.
It really does. It made me memorable. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were failing, but it turned out okay because you were just being yourself?
Oh, definitely. But my story is a bit more embarrassing. I was in an interview once, and I was trying so hard to be professional. I was using big words and sitting up very straight. But about halfway through a sentence, I completely lost track of what I was saying. I actually forgot the name of the company I was interviewing with.
Oh no, James, that is a classic nightmare. What did you do? Did you just sit there in silence?
I almost did. I froze for a second. Then I just said, and that is why I want to work for this wonderful place. The manager just laughed. He could see I was incredibly nervous. I decided to just be honest. I said, I'm so sorry. My brain just took a vacation. We both laughed, and it actually broke the ice. I felt much more relaxed after that.
See? Being human is a strength. When we try to be perfect, we can be a bit boring. But when we share a little bit of our real selves, even our mistakes, people relate to us. How about you, listening at home? Do you have a hobby that you are proud of, even if it's a bit messy or imperfect? Does it ever come up at work?
I would love to hear about those hobbies. Sometimes we really need those things to help us wind down after a long day of trying to be professional in the office.
It really is the best way to relax, James. Whether it's gardening or just sitting on the sofa, those little things are what make us human. But, it's funny. We often talk about our hobbies like they're secrets we have to hide from the professional world.
I feel you. It's like I have two different versions of myself. There's professional James, who wears a tie and knows big words, and then there's real James, who loses his car keys in the refrigerator. I'm always afraid the professional world will find out about the refrigerator James.
But that's the secret, James. Everyone has a refrigerator story. I want our listeners to try something. Next time you're in an interview and you feel those sweaty palm moments, just keep in mind that the person across the desk is just like you. They're not a robot in a suit.
That's hard to remember when they're staring at you and taking notes. It feels like they're judging my whole life.
How can I see them as a normal person?
Try to visualize them in a normal situation. Maybe they struggled to build a piece of flat-pack furniture this weekend. Or maybe they have a grumpy cat at home, like my cat Whiskers, who judges them for being 5 minutes late with dinner. When you see them as a human with their own small failures, it really puts you at ease.
I love that. It makes the whole room feel less cold. So if I make a mistake and my brain stops working for a second, I should just, pretend it didn't happen?
Not exactly. Just bear with yourself. If you stumble on a difficult English word, take a breath and shake it off. You can even say, "Sorry, I am a bit nervous because I really care about this job." That kind of honesty helps you open up, and recruiters actually find it very refreshing.
I think I can do that. It makes it feel like a conversation between two people instead of an exam. How about you, listening at home? Do you find it hard to see your boss or an interviewer as a real person? Does it help if you imagine them doing something silly, like accidentally wearing two different socks?
It really does help. We are all just people trying our best. An interview is just a chance to see if two humans can work well together. It is not a battle.
That is so true, Elena. It really is not a battle. Well, before we finish today's chat, I want to look back at our stories and the way we told them. I noticed we used a few specific sentence patterns.
You're right. Those are really helpful for our listeners to learn. For example, when you were talking about your dad's suit, you said, "I was so nervous that." This is a great way to explain an emotion and its result.
Exactly. I was so nervous that I couldn't even sit down properly. It helps the listener understand how strong the feeling was. Have you ever felt that way, Elena?
Oh, many times. Usually it's when I'm about to play my ukulele in front of people. I get so nervous that my fingers feel like sausages. But then we also use the phrase, "it turns out." This is perfect for a surprise in a story.
Like when you said, it turns out the manager also loved gardening. It shows that what actually happened was different from what you expected.
Precisely. Now let's step into Elena's vocabulary corner. I want to highlight 3 idioms from our conversation that are perfect for the workplace. The first one is to sell yourself. James, do you know what that means?
I do. It means to talk about your skills and achievements in a way that makes you look good. It's like being your own fan.
That's a great way to put it. Here's an example. In a job interview, you really have to sell yourself to show why you are the best candidate. James, can you give us one?
Sure, I find it difficult to sell myself because I'm a very humble person.
Nice one. Next is to get your foot in the door. This means to get an initial opportunity or a first job in a company, which might lead to something better later.
I used that when I started at the cafe. I took a cleaning job just to get my foot in the door. How about you?
My example would be, doing an internship is often the best way to get your foot in the door at a top law firm.
And the third one was to think on your feet, right? That sounds like something I have to do every time I forget a word on this podcast.
Exactly. It means to think and react quickly when something unexpected happens. My example. When the projector broke during the presentation, I had to think on my feet and use the whiteboard instead.
I love that. My example, the interviewer asked me a very strange question, so I had to think on my feet to give a good answer.
Perfect. We also mentioned power through and wind down earlier. Remember, power through is to keep going when things are hard, and wind down is to relax.
I definitely need to wind down later. I might take my dog Barnaby, he is a very energetic golden retriever, for a long walk to clear my head. How about you, listening at home? Do you have to think on your feet often at your job, or are you looking for a way to get your foot in the door of a new career?
We would love to know. These phrases are so common, and using them will make you sound much more natural in your next interview.
Well, Elena, I feel much better about my coffee stain now. It's just part of the real me. I think I'm ready to stop worrying and just enjoy the rest of the day.
That is the spirit. Before we wind down for the day, let's give our listeners a few simple sentence patterns. These will help you tell your own stories more easily.
Like a little toolkit for our friends at home. What is the first one?
The first is, I was so, emotion, that I, action. For example, I was so nervous that I forgot my own phone number. It helps you explain a strong feeling.
I use that one a lot. How about it turned out that? Like when I said, it turned out that the manager was actually very nice.
Exactly. It's perfect for a surprise. And one more for the workplace. I had to think on my feet when... This is great for describing a time you had to be quick and clever.
Those are so useful. I hope you guys can use them this week. Now, Elena, it is time for my favorite part of the show, the homework.
Yes, we want to hear from you. Please go to the comments and answer this. What is the strangest or most uncomfortable outfit you have ever worn to an interview? Did you try to dress up to the nines and it went completely wrong?
I really hope someone else has a giant suit story like mine. Please share them with us. It helps everyone feel more confident when we realize we all make mistakes.
It really does. Whether you are trying to get your foot in the door at a new job or just trying to improve your English, we believe in you. You are doing a great job just by listening today.
We really mean that. Don't worry about being perfect. Just keep practicing and you will power through any challenge. I'm going to go look for my car keys now. I have a feeling they're in the refrigerator again.
Oh, James, I hope you find your keys soon. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for hanging out with us at James and Elena's English Chat. We can't wait to see you in the next episode.
Goodbye. Take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.